This conference will now be recorded.
All right, any questions, guys, before we get started? Anyone, any questions that I can take before we can get started with Terraform today?
Hi sir, good morning sir.
Good morning, God, please.
Sir, when I give Terraform init command function on my
Mm-hmm.
PowerShell, it shows me where to query available provider packages. so the
Okay,
so behind that, what is the reason? But I don't know. It shows me that could not retrieve the list of the available versions.
could not retrieve the list of available versions. Okay, so when you gave your provider block, how did you specify the provider block again? When you are going and giving the provider block, right? So are you just setting provider Azure RM, or how did you do that?
Provider Azure RM
Okay,
and
and can you?
features
Sorry, go ahead, please. Mhm.
and features. So
Okay,
when I copied
and
my path on my PowerShell, it uh, I worried a lot of bugs in that PowerShell, sir. But I don't know. But I tried a lot of times, and again it shows me installation. The backend is failure to query available provider packages.
can you please send me across an email, please, so that I can take a look at that and help you out?
Uh,
Can, I'm sorry.
sure,
I'm sorry, I didn't
sure,
get
sir. I
you.
will
Sorry.
send you, sir.
Yeah, sure. Please send me across an email so that I can.
I will send my.
Yeah, sure,
Okay, sir. I will send. I will send to you.
sure. Yes, any more questions, guys? Anyone, any more questions with Terraform still here? Okay, so let's today. Let me go ahead build a new template. So I'll just say this is instead of main file, I'll say resources.tf. I mean, you can give it any name, not a problem at all. And inside this, let me go ahead and start writing. Firstly, to begin with, I will go ahead give a provider block. I'll say it's Azure RM, inside which I'll go ahead and say it is features. And before I go ahead and start writing my resources, now this is the let's say a requirement that I do have is that I have three different teams: Dev, QA, and DevOps team. Okay. For the Dev team, they want a resource group with the name called DevRG. For the QA team, they want it with QARG. For the DevOps team, they want it with DevOps RG. And they also want each and every team wants a storage account also. For the dev team needs storage account with a name called dev storage, something like that. QA team needs it with QA storage. And DevOps team needs it with DevOps storage. And I'm going to use as many as variables possible. So I'll say variables.tf. In the variables, I'll just declare one variable here telling it is team name. And what I'll do is that I'll just go ahead, give a type, and I'm not giving a default value here at all because I just need one variable file. I don't want, let's say, to declare the values because I have three different teams here today, right? I have one called Dev, I have one called QA, I have one called something like DevOps. Just give me a second, guys. I have something called Dev, QA, and DevOps out here, right? So I am not giving the values for the same thing. I am just going ahead and let's say declaring the variable and the data type of the variable out here. That's it. This is what I'm declaring right now. I'll just save this out and the here the value can be Dev, QA, or DevOps. This is the name of the team. This is the value. This could be the value. Either it's Dev, either it's QA or DevOps out here. And then I will go ahead and say something like location. Again, development team wants in a different location. QA team wants in a different location. So I'm not declaring the location also. I'll again say variable and I'll say SKU for the storage account. Again, multiple things. Dev team wants it in, let's say, something like LRS. QA wants it in GRS and so on and so forth. So I'm storing all these values. I'm saving all these values out here. And let me go inside and here, let me start writing my resources block. So I'll say resource. I'll say Azure RM underscore resource underscore group. I'll give a local name telling it is RG. And let me go ahead, give the name. And now here's the deal. I have a variable called team name which says dev. Hyphen RG is common for everyone. So dev hyphen RG, QA hyphen RG, and so on and so forth, right? So what I'll do is like just like we did in an ARM template where we went ahead and concatenated two different strings. I'll also use the same logic in Terraform to concatenate things around. So I'll say in quotes dollar open and close flower brackets. Whenever you're calling a variable inside a quote, use a dollar open close flower brackets. Say var dot team name. This is the variable which says dev QA something like that. I'll say hyphen RG. No plus nothing. Inside this, I'm just going ahead. I'm declaring what is my variable hyphen RG. So it'll say okay fine. The variable values will come something like this. It'll be dev for development hyphen RG. It'll be QA for QA hyphen RG. DevOps for DevOps hyphen RG. Multiple values will get populated on the fly. This is the idea that I have. And for location, I'll just go ahead and say it is var dot location. Now there's a difference between variable that is declared inside a quote and variable that is outside. If it's outside, you don't have to give that flower brackets and then the dollar out here. But if it's declared inside, right, inside the code, right, you have to give this particular dollar and then flower bracket and then hyphen RG. So this is how I'm declaring things out here as such. So this is my resource group. And then I have another resource called storage account. So I'll say Azure RM underscore storage underscore account. I'll say this is something like store. And for the properties, I'll just go visit my documentation once again, see what are all the properties I can declare. So I'll say Terraform Azure provider and go here and look for storage account. If I just scroll down, I have a storage account, Azure RM resource group storage account out here, and these are the properties basically that I can use. So I'll just copy all of them, paste them here. And again, the storage account name should start with dev QA or DevOps. So I'll again say it is var.team name plus, let's say something like dev store tf abc xyz and 000 something like this, so that I can go ahead and create a Terraform resource Terraform storage account out here. Again, the resource group name. What should I change here, guys? Is this okay? Should I change anything here? The resource group name and the location. How do I pass this? Anyone? How do I pass this one? What do I
Instead
change
of
in the resource group?
instead of example, we have to give RG.
We have to give RG. That's it. Because here the local name is being given as RG out here. So instead of example, I change that to RG. Account tier could be standard. And this one again is a variable. So either you can give it here in the code, or since that you're anyways just passing there in the code, right? So I'll say it is var.sku. This is what I'm doing. I'll remove the tags. I don't need the tags for now. So I'm creating a simple resource group and a storage account inside it, but now for different teams. This is the most important thing out here. And very importantly, the variable file doesn't have, let's say, any kind of parameters. The variable file doesn't have anything that is hard coded, anything that is declared. Everything here is, let's say, it's just a data, it's just the name of the variable and the data type of the variable. That's it. These are the only two things that I declared. And now I can use a PowerShell script, and either I can use, let's say, my PowerShell IS or the PowerShell basically that I have. Either I could be using the PowerShell, either here, or you can just go ahead, open a new window in your VS Code and write a PowerShell. I prefer this because it's easier for me to, let's say, explain it in two different screens. on what is happening in one screen and what is happening in the other. It's easier for me to do that. So let me go ahead and let me copy that folder path. And I have two different files here. There is no Terraform plugins, so I'll have to download the Terraform plugins. So let me expand this and let me increase the font slightly so that everyone can look at this one. Let's see, this is 18 or yeah, fine, cool. So let's do. So let's start with Terraform init, and it's initializing all the Azure backend plugins. So it's downloading that particular Terraform folder as you see, and it's maintaining those plugins out here. And I have this one. So Terraform has initialized successfully. Great enough, good enough. Now what I'll do is that I'll also run a command called Terraform FMT format. What it does is that it just aligns all your file in a very neat way, very optional in nature. So if you see earlier when I wrote, all these files were not properly spaced and all that stuff, right? So Terraform format will just help you go ahead and format all the files that are incorrectly formatted. So I'm just going ahead and just writing this command optionally out here. And once I write this, I'll now run before Terraform planning. I'll now run another command called Terraform validate to validate whether I have written everything in the right syntax or not. Is everything right? Did I do any mistakes in writing my syntaxes? For example, if I miss a bracket or if I miss a mandatory parameter called account tier. So let's comment this out. So there is a mandatory parameter called account tier. I missed that out. And if I now try to, let's say, do Terraform validate, Terraform validate should, kind of give me this particular error telling me that, what this account tier, which is a mandatory by definition, this is missing. Please go ahead and let's say write it properly, or please go ahead and give that particular definition. So Terraform validate will help you check your configuration and tell you whether everything is working fine or not. That's it. So I'm running two additional commands. After Terraform init, I'm saying it is Terraform FMT format and Terraform validate. Terraform format is just to make sure that your files are formatted properly, and Terraform validate is to make sure that your infrastructure or the configuration that you declared, is everything in place? Are the syntaxes in place? Are all the mandatory parameters, are they in place? It's just there to make it's just there to make sure that all these things are, let's say, in place and so on and so forth. Once this is done, I'll now start running Terraform plan. The Terraform plan, I'll say enter, and as and when I enter, it's asking me where dot location, please enter a value. I don't know what is this. I'll say enter. It's saying var dot sku, please enter a value. It's saying team name, enter a value. I'll say enter out here. And why is this even asking me like this, guys? Any idea? Why do you think these values are now coming up? Guys, I need some inputs. I'm not getting anything. I will.
Because we are
Mhm.
using reusable script.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you come again, please?
Because we are using reusable scripts, so the client can enter their details like locations.
Okay. But why should they enter here? Why should I enter here?
We are declare the variables.
We declared variables. Yes. And did we declare the values of the variables?
No,
Did we declare in?
No,
No, we
no.
did not declare the values because I wanted to make sure that this is reusable. So it's asking me that, what, I don't get the values. So I cannot help you with this. So as yesterday we were looking, I said Terraform plan hyphen help. There is something called variable hyphen var. You can pass it here. This is what I was telling. We can do that. Terraform plan hyphen var, and I have something called team name is equal to dev. Say hyphen var, and I have something called location is equal to, let's say, is us2 for development team. I'll say hyphen var, and there's something called SKU. I'll say is equal to LRS. So what I'm doing is that instead of passing it during the runtime, because runtime passage is sometime, it's not sometime, but it's all time not recommended, because when you run the Terraform templates using Azure DevOps, it doesn't support user interaction. Now, when it doesn't support user interaction, then the problem is that your templates are going to fail. Your templates execution is going to fail. So I'm going ahead declaring everything during the runtime or before the runtime. Before I go ahead and let's say I do that enter button, I'm passing it as a command line as a command line arguments. And once I pass this as a command line argument, Terraform now is doing the planning for me. So it's saying, okay, fine, I'll do the plan. Will take some time. It'll take like about a minute or so. So it's now doing ahead trying to build that particular TF state file in the memory, understanding what it needs to do. And once it gets a plan, it will go ahead and tell me that, okay, fine, you know what, Terraform is planning so on and so forth, or this is what Terraform is trying to do, and so on and so forth out here. So let's wait for a minute. And sometimes your PowerShell can be very, very slow, especially this is something that I faced with Terraforms. It could be slow. And if you see this, so I waited for about a minute or two. It was still stuck in that particular command line. So you can do a control C. As in you do control C, right? It'll go ahead and load. Sometimes it gets stuck when you're doing on a local machine. I don't know what is the reason, but it gets stuck out there. So I did a control C, and after that, it's telling, okay, fine, plus create Terraform will perform the following actions. Azure RM resource group RG will be created with the name called devrg ECS2. Storage account will be created, and I mean, even this is an ECS location and all these things out. But one thing that I didn't do is that I forgot to save my plan. So let me run this out once again. It's an additional argument called -out, where I'll tell it is a dev plan dot or dev.tf plan. So I'm saving my plan in the form of a TF plan file. I'm not only planning it, I'm saving it out too, so that I can use that plan and then go ahead and start application of the same plan out here as such. So this is what I'm trying to do right now. So again, I'm doing a planning. It's creating a backend state file, and after it does, so now it says, okay, fine, you know what, the plan is saved to dev.tf plan. You can now go ahead and start applying this out. And to apply, just copy this command, selling Terraform apply, and go ahead and copy this particular command called space dev.tf plan. I'll say enter, and now the application has started. The application is now trying to create the resources. It's not there on the Azure portal, which is devrg. It's not there on the Azure portal. So it's just going ahead and trying to, let's say, create all these resources that are not there. So we'll take some time, and while that's happening, let me refresh my screen. It will try to create the resource group firstly. So it's creating the resource group right now, and it's saying creation complete after 5 seconds. Now it's creating the storage account, and after a minute or so, it will also try to create the storage account. It's still creating and all that stuff. After a minute, it will go ahead and, let's say, deploy or create all your resources out here as such. So let me give it a second. So I have the devrg created, and as and when I have the devrg created, it will take like a minute or so to go ahead and create me the storage account also. And here it's saying application complete. Took around 36 seconds to create my storage account. 2 resources added, 0 changed, and 0 destroyed. So if I go back into my, let's say, Terraforms, and it's going ahead and telling, okay, fine, yes, the storage account is created. This is the devrg, this is the storage account and all. Also, I have the state file right now. It's telling rg devrg. It's telling storage with this particular name, with the following properties have been created out here right now. Good. This is for the first team. It is done for development team. Any questions still here on how did we pass this? and what kind of, let's say, commands did we use. So to begin with, I have used Terraform init, then Terraform FMT format, then validate, then Terraform plan with an output. So I said Terraform plan hyphen var. I pass in a variable called team name, then a var hyphen, then I pass in a variable called location, then a var pass in a variable called SKU. I'm doing an output into the TF plan, and after that, I went ahead and did a Terraform apply, and I pointed what my TF plan is. That's it. This is what I've been doing. So any questions till here before we move forward? Anyone? Any questions that I can take till here with the command line that or with the command line that we've been using? Any questions for me till here?
This dev.tf plan will be stored permanently.
Yes, the dev.tf plan will be stored permanently, and the next time when you do a Terraform apply and you want to change something, the plan will also get changed. So the dev.tf plan will be stored here. You cannot you cannot really see this file. This is for Terraform internally, but if you want to see this file, you can just go ahead and run a command called Terraform space show space dev.tf plan. This will go ahead and give you what the plan was actually doing. 2 to add, 0 to change, and 0 to destroy.
Okay. This will be stored in somewhere in cache.
No, it is here. See,
Yeah, we can see the
it's not
file
a
here, but
cache.
we can't see the
Mhm.
code directly, right?
You can't see the code directly because this is a TF planning file. The extension is not supported in VS Code,
Okay. Mhm.
but the file has some memory. It has some space, right? So it has about 4 KB of space. So it's not a
Okay.
cache. It's an actual file, but it's just that you cannot really see that. So if I just open this with, let's say, something like a notepad or something like that, I guess you cannot even see it with notepad. See, it's a binary file. So that's the reason Terraform can only see this. That's the reason you need to just run this command.
Kind of build.
Kind of, yes.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Yes, any more questions, guys?
Abhishek, can
Mm-hmm.
we create multiple RG or multiple
I'm sorry.
storage account by using this?
Yes, we can do that. We can use something like counter for each to go ahead and do that.
If I want to create 3 RG and then 6 storage account, then
Yes, you can do that. Not a problem. You can do mapping out here. There shouldn't be a problem at all.
can you show that how? Just a little bit.
Well, mhm. Not right now, but I have a demo for that. We can discuss about that while we are going into iterations.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes, any more questions, guys? Okay. Now, then question for everyone is that, see, I've created all these resources for a team called Dev. If I want to create all these resources for a team called QA, what should I do? What is the command that I need to now run? Or how should I, let's say, create this out for someone like QA? If you all understood Dev, how do I do it for a QA? Anyone? Good, guys. We don't have all day out time out here, so please give me some inputs out here as such. I have shown you how to create it for a development team. Now you all tell me how do I create it for a QA?
Firstly, we'll plan it and give the
Okay,
variables accordingly
we'll
and
plan
save
it
the
and give the
output.
variables accordingly. Correct. So the same command,
Yes,
which is Terraform plan, but instead of telling it is dev, we'll say
we'll
QA.
change it.
Yes. So say for example here, instead of telling location is east US 2, probably you give something like central US. And instead of telling it is LRS, we give GRS. Instead of telling it is dev plan, we say it is a QA.tf plan. Right? This is as simple as it is. So let's enter and now tell me, what do you all think will this plan or would this plan really do out here? what do you think will be the output of this particular plan? Anyone? Or what do you all think can be the output of this particular plan if we go ahead and execute this out? Guys, answers please. Again, no right answer, no wrong answer, just a guesswork. So please open up and please let me know what do you all think can be the output of this particular plan.
I think it will destroy the Devachi and create override.
Very good. It will destroy the dev RG, override it out, and then go ahead and create two new resources for you. Very good observation. But why is this? Why is it replacing a development RG and creating a QA RG in place of it? So if you see, you have a dev RG and even the location is getting changed. Storage account is also being changed. You see, it's from dev RG to QA, dev storage to QA storage, but it's not persisting the earlier storage accounts. It's not telling that okay, fine, I will leave dev. I'll create a let's say QA for you. It's not telling that. It's trying to delete the earlier ones and create a new one for you. But why is this? I don't want this, right? I want to make sure that the earlier resources are also there and the new resources are also created. Then why do you think this is happening?
Because we have not given any value now.
Value asset, can you come again, please?
Like we have not
Uh,
given any particular name to the RG group, the dev RG
uh,
group.
okay, okay, but why do you think I have not giving the name? I'm not giving the name. I'm passing this command line, right? I'm giving I'm giving a variable called central US. I'm giving an SKU called GRS, and that's the reason it's giving me this particular, let's say, value called QARJ. If I wouldn't have passed anything, it would have just failed telling me that okay, fine, you did not pass anything, so I'm sorry. I'm giving those values. What else could be the reason here? It's trying to destroy two and recreate again. And it's telling okay, fine, if you want to do this, go ahead with this one called Terraform apply and apply that particular QA plan. What could be the reason it is destroying?
Because it is taking the same variables in the same variable file and
Uh,
override. I
mhm.
think it needs a separate variable file for different stages.
Is it separate variable file or is it a separate state file?
Yeah, separate state file.
It's a separate state file. Exactly, because when you did a Terraform apply earlier, we have all these name value pairs that are stored and it's trying to override this particular state file. So when it's overriding this particular state file, terraform.tf state, this is, I'm telling that this state file is for a team called development. It's telling, okay, fine, you know what, the state file already contains all these values. It's telling, you know what, these contains all these values out here. So I cannot really help you out because it's telling this is already maintaining a state for one particular environment called development. So what I can do is firstly what I'll do is I'll delete this particular QA plan. I don't need this QA plan anymore. So I'll deleted that plan. Let's say clear screen. I'll give one more additional parameter called hyphen state. I can also have multiple state files, and the reason I can have multiple state files is because of the fact that I can use terraforms for multiple environments. I will say it is a qa.tf state. For development, I just use a terraform.tf state. For QA, I'm using one specific state file called qa.tf state. Now I'm forcing my Terraform planning to create a new state file. I'm doing a new state file out here. I'm telling my Terraforms not to read the earlier state file. If you read the earlier state file, you'll end up destroying everything. Don't do that. Create a new state file for me in order to store the infrastructure values for someone like QA. And now It's telling yes, I won't destroy anything, but rather I will store it into something like a different state file out here. And even while doing a Terraform apply command, I'll have to do the same thing. I will say Terraform apply -help. It's telling -state path. So I can say again Terraform apply -state is equal to the qa.tf state space the plan that I have, qa.tf plan, and say enter. So earlier I just had qa.tf plan or dev.tf plan. Now I'm giving an additional parameter telling -state is equal to something. It's now going ahead and creating that particular state file for me without having to destroy what I already have, which is development. So now it's saying, okay, fine, you know what? I won't destroy anything that is earlier. Anything that was there earlier, I won't do that. I'm directly creating resource scripts with the name called QARG. After that, I'll create a storage account with the same name. But in order to track all these things, I will be using a separate state file out here. I'll be using, let's say, a separate state file, and that's how I will store your values, or that's where I will store your values out here as such. So if you allow this a minute, it will go ahead and create all these resources. Sometimes you might see the command line getting stuck here. If it's still stuck, like say about for about 2 minutes or something, just do a Control C on the keyboard. Don't do it too early, because if you do too early, the operation will get cancelled. And when I do a Control C, it's telling resources added, 2 added, 0 changed, and 0 destroyed. And if I refresh my screen, I have the dev RG, I have the dev storage, sorry, I have the QRG, I have the QA storage out here that is created. This is how I am making use of my commands in order to make sure that I don't delete the earlier resources and recreate something. So this is what I have. I have a plan. I have all the variables that I passed. Then I have the output into the QA.tf plan. Then I have the state file out here telling it is QA.tf state. Any questions till here? Anyone? Any questions till here?
Means, sir, each stage we are creating here a separate state file.
Correct. For each and every environment, you would need a separate state file. When you do this for DevOps, you need a separate plan and separate state file for the DevOps team also.
Otherwise, it will override.
Yes, it will override otherwise.
Is that only time consuming, or again it is not going to be work out? Suppose first I created a plan for an dev, and later on a QA, that is going to be override. Later on again a stage, that is going to be override. In case if I want to rebuild in a dev, again it goes to the new plan and I will apply, but I will get an again dev, right?
Yes.
But only state file will be every time it is going to be override.
Yes. So that's the reason you need to produce a state file every time.
Okay.
Yes. Any more questions, guys? So if I want to do the same thing for DevOps, I'll change my team name. I'll change the location. I'll change the SKU. I'll tell what is the output. I'll I'll simply go ahead and tell what is the state. So once all these things are going, I give all these things, I am good enough to go ahead and create another, let's say, infrastructure, let's say, resources for DevOps, for QA, for Dev, and I can maintain the state of my environment. I can maintain the state of the environment out here as such. So I'm using just one variable file, no values declared, and I'm declaring all the all the values during the runtime. I'm declaring all these values during the runtime out here. And sometimes what might happen is that yes, this is good practice to go ahead and let's say declare the values in the runtime. Good practice. But sometimes what happens is that the amount of variables that you have might be very high. Here it's just three, so I'm able to go ahead and let's say pass -var, and I'm able to pass all these things out. This is good enough, but if the amount of variables are very much, let's say about 20 or 30 variables per an environment, it's very difficult to pass them in the command line. It's very difficult to pass all these things while the runtime. For which, what you can do is Terraform allows you to create something called as a tf-var file. For example, I'll say dev.tfvars. You can have qa.tfvars, devops.tfvars, and etc. And whatever is the variable that you declared here can be passed as a value, just a key value pair. So team name dev, location is us2. So instead of passing it on the command line, you can pass it here itself. SKU, I can say LRS. Save this out. I can go ahead and copy the same file out here, or I can just create a new file called qa.tfr. So it is tf-vars variable files. I can say this is QA. I can say this is Central US. You can say something like GRS. And for DevOps also, I can create the similar file, qa.tfrs. Now, instead of passing all these things here while planning, instead of passing all the variable files out here, all individual variables out here, you can say -var -file is equal to dev.tfvars will work. So instead of passing it during the runtime, I'm just going ahead and passing a file name. Again, how did I get this value? I can say tflan -help. Then I have something like this one. -var -file is equal to the file name. Loading the file name for all the environments. This is what it's telling. That it's loading the file name for all the environments. So you do not have to, let's say, go ahead and pass each and every individual variable. You can declare all of them inside the file, and you can call that particular file on the command line. This is what it kind of tells you out here as such. So the command just becomes a little easier for you to pass. Something like Terraform plan -var -file is equal to either dev.tflan or dev.tfrs or qa.tfrs, and say state is equal to qa.tf state. If I now enter this out, all it will do is simply go into this file, take all the variables, and it'll tell me what it needs to do. In this case, since it's already applied, since everything is already done, you'll simply say, okay, fine, you know what, it's already applied, so there is no configuration changes. So we are good with the same. This is what it should give me in written out here. So the only advantage of this is that instead of going in and declaring all your variables, which is manually on the command line, you can store all your variables and it will allow you to go ahead and let's say create multiple DFR files. So now it's saying no changes, your infrastructure matches your configuration. We are good here. So selling Terraform compared your infrastructure. No changes are required. We are super good out here as such. Yes. Any questions still here? Anyone, any questions I can take till here? Anyone, any questions?
Means when we want to use the QA stage, we have to call the QA state file. When we are using dev, we have to call the dev state file. Is that we have to use?
Yes, correct. So whenever you're declaring, let's say QA, for QA, you will have to call the QA.tfrs. You also have to call the, let's say QA.tfstate and output also. Like one thing that I missed here is that out, you need to save the QA.tfplan. So you have to do all these things for a particular environment. Now, if you say for this for dev, you can say it is dev.tfplan. You can say this is dev.tfstate. You can say this is dev.tfvars. This is how you can change your values out here as such.
Out means, sir?
Sorry,
Out.
out, it just means where you want to save your TF plan. Output.
Okay. Okay. Output.
Yes, any more questions here? Anyone? Any more questions? Okay, now let's take a new window. Let's do one more example of how do you create multiple resources out here. Someone was asking. So let's see. The Terraform's iterations. Let's start with a simple resource like a resource group. So again, I'll say resources.tf. And here I'll just go ahead and tell that, okay, fine. I want to go ahead and create resources. Like for example, I'll start with provider. I'll say Azure RM. Features. And inside that, I want to create 3 resource groups. So what I'll do is I'll say the resource Azure RM underscore resource underscore group. And here I'll say it is local RG, something like this. And the very first thing that I'll begin with is telling what is the count. I'll say 3 probably. And name here, I'll say whatever the name is. Say Terraform RG hyphen 012. Terraform RG 0, Terraform RG 1, Terraform RG 2. So I'll say I'll call a variable called count.index. The index value of this particular count starts with 0. Something like now this value becomes, for the very first time, it says Terraform 0. Second time, it will say it is Terraform hyphen 1. Third time, it will say it is Terraform hyphen 2. Let's say I take a location called EastGS2. I save this out. And if I now want to again apply this out, let's copy that particular folder called Terraform iterations. Let's go back. Let's see ls. I have Terraform iteration somewhere called Terraform hyphen iterations. Let's say cd into Terraform hyphen iterations. And if I do an ls here, I have a resources.tf file. This is what I'm applying out here. So I'll again talk about Terraform init for the very first time and initialize this particular backend. And since this is a very simple application, I'll start with Terraform plan. And when I do a Terraform plan out here, it's just going to give you the plan, and this plan will itself tell you what it kind of creates. And this is a count.index out here. So it's just going ahead in that particular, let's say, Terraform template, understanding how many resources it needs. And here it's about 3 resources. So now I'll tell, okay, fine, you know what, I'll create 3 different resources for you. Again, I just cancel this out operation. Let me run this out once again. Will take some time in order to generate the plan. So let me wait for the plan. Okay, let me wait for it to, let's say, generate the plan out here. I cannot look into my state file because it's building my state file right now. It's trying to understand what is the state file and all that stuff. We'll allow it some time, and it should go ahead and tell, okay, fine, you know what is, let's say, the resource group out here. And if you see this out, it's 3 to add. Okay, it's just 3 to add out here. 3 to add, 0 to change, and 0 to destroy. And if I just scroll up, it's telling this is the first resource called local RG0, which is Terraform RG here. Then it's telling this is the second resource, Terraform 1. It's telling this is the third resource group, which is Terraform 2 out here as such. This is how it's going ahead and uh, executing all these values out here to create 3 different resource groups. So if you do a Terraform apply, it will go ahead and let's say create 3 different resource groups out here as such. Now, I want you to tell me that I want now 3 different storage accounts, one under each, let's say, resource group. Just tell me how do you create it out? Just tell me what is the logic used here in order to create the same thing out here as such. This is the assignment for you, is that I have 3 different resources or 3 different resource groups that I'm creating, and under each and every resource group I want let's say 1 storage each. How do I create this out is what I want you all to really brood over. You can go ahead use something called I'll give you an article called count versus for each in Terraform. Just do count versus for each in Terraform. Just scroll down the second link, which is called Jeff Brown Tech. This has a very good article. It's I have a very good documentation on how do you use all these things. I want you to go through this one, this particular article. What is Terraform count versus what is Terraform for each? And this will help you with that particular assignment out here as such. Yes, any questions here, guys? Anyone, any questions here? Anyone, any questions that I can take before we close?
Abhishek, hello.
Good, please.
Yeah, suppose here we have taken count 3. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it is coming in serial wise like Terraform RG0, then 1, then 2. If suppose I
Mm-hmm.
want to create Terraform RG ABC, Terraform RG XYZ, Terraform RG
Mm-hmm.
CDE, something in this way. So how
Okay,
it is going to take?
that's where you have to read this article, the one that I sent you.
Okay.
On how is it going to take in, how exactly that you can create this out and so on and so forth.
Okay, sure, we'll do that.
Yes, any more questions, guys? All right, so that's it from mine, guys. So we'll meet in the next session. Until then, please try this out. Please let me know if there are any questions. In the next section, we'll try to apply Terraforms using the Azure DevOps. That's what I'm getting into. So we'll look into that and we'll see how that works out. Thank you and have a good day ahead.